Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Zevachim Daf Lamed. We begin on Chav Tes Amud Beis at the beginning of the Gemara here, 4 lines off the bottom of the Amud. So right after the Mishnah. Amar Ilfa. This relates back to the Mishnah where we learned that if a kohen has a machshava of chutz l'zmanai, wrong time, I'm going to eat the carbon or serve the carbon to the mizbeach beyond the allowable time, the carbon is not only puzzle, it becomes pigel, a more severe deficiency, which in case if a person eats the carbon, even now, he's liable to kares, as opposed to the machshava of chutz l'mkaimai, where he planned on processing the carbon or eating it outside of the allowable place. That makes for a puzzle, but not for kares. Now, what if he has both thoughts? So we learned in the Mishnah, pigel needs to be strictly, purely pigel. If he inserts any other deficient thoughts or plans, the carbon is no longer pigel, it is puzzle. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says, look, it depends what came first. So if he has a machshava of chutz l'zmanai, and then he follows with chutz l'mkaimai, the carbon is pigel. But if chutz l'mkaimai came first, there's no pigel. Now the question is, are we speaking during the same exact avodah? So during, let's say, the shechita, still Rabbi Yehuda says, if zman preceded makkah, there is pigel? Or are we speaking during two different avodas? So only then does Rabbi Yehuda say, look, if during the shechita you had zman sets in and pigel kicks in, even though he came back with makkah during the next avodah, it doesn't interfere. So which way is it? Amar Ilfa. Machlokes, this discussion in the Mishnah, meaning Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that if the machshava of chutz l'mkaimai came first, pigel sets in, that's only mishtei avodas. When the machshava of time occurred during this avodah, so it sets in, and therefore when the machshava of makim came about later during the next avodah, it can't undo it. Aval b'avodah achas. But if they both occur during the same avodah, he's saying a kazayis that will eat the wrong time, kazayis that will eat in the wrong place. Divrei HaKol all agree, even Rabbi Yehuda does, that it's either machshavas havi. Machshavas are mixed. They collide, they cancel each other out, there's no pigel. Rabbi Yehuda says no, af b'avodah achas machlokes. Even if they should both occur during the same avodah, Rabbi Yehuda holds, it's all about who came first. And if machshava of zman comes first, there's pigel. Now, in the beginning of the Mishnah, we discussed various scenarios of pigel. And we went through, different avodas. This avodah was pigel, this avodah was... So Bishlam Ilfa, according to Ilfa, it works out well. Midrasha, since the first part of the Mishnah is speaking mishtei avodas, where the varying thoughts and plans occur during different avodas, Sefer Nami, likewise, in the second part of the Mishnah, where Rabbi Yehuda states his opinion, Nami mishtei avodas, it also mirrors the same, system where the varying thoughts occur during different avodas. So the Mishnah matches. El Rabbi Yechon, however, according to Rabbi Yechon, who says that Rabbi Yehuda speaks even during the same avodah, are you going to tell me Reisha b'shtei avodas, part A of the Mishnah is speaking about where the machshavas occurred during different avodas, Seifa, and part B is speaking about avodah achas that occurred during the same avodah? Says Gemara, yeah, that can work. Reisha, first part of the Mishnah, b'shtei avodas, we're speaking that the different, machshavas occur during different avodas, as per the Mishnah's presentation. However, the Seifa, the second part of the Mishnah, can be speaking either or. Bein b'avodah achas, whether both occur during the same avodah, bein b'shtei avodas, or they occur during different avodas. It can go either way. But the chiddush is, even if both occur during the same avodah, still Rabbi Yehuda holds that if zman came before makim, pigel sets in. Tanan. Let's take a look at the lashon of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda. Zeh klal. Here's the general rule. Now, when you use that type of phrase, typically it denotes emphasis. And he's emphasizing something extra, beyond, the surface. And he says like this: if the machshava of zman came before the machshava of makim, pigel, of course, there's bona fide pigel. Now, why this emphasis? Why this extra lashon zaklal? So Bishlam Rabbi Yochanan is perfect. The point of zaklal is to emphasize that even if both occur during the very same moment, the very same avodah, still Rabbi Yehuda holds, if zman came before makim, it sets in, and you have pigel. But according to Ilfa, that it's limited to a case where Zman was during this avodah and Mokim during the next avodah. Why should we be emphasizing? What's he coming to add beyond, the simple halacha kasha? In fact, we leave it as an unresolved question. The lashon of the Mishnah is a bit difficult. Okay, so in summary, he had both machshavos, which are technically competing machshavos. Zman and Mokim are not compatible. Zman makes pigul, Mokim interferes with the pigul. Still, Rabbi says, if Zman came first, he put his foot through the door first, pigul sets in. Tanan Hasan. Let's shift over to a Mishnah in Maseches Tmura, which discusses likewise, a similar case of competing and incompatible pronouncements, announcements and declarations. Tanan Hasan. Hareza Tmuras Oila Tmuras Shlamim. So he has a carbon Oila, a proper carbon Oila before him, and a carbon Shlamim. He'd like to make a Tmura. Not supposed to, but he wants to do it anyway. Tmura means like an exchange. He wants to extend the Kedusha from the original carbon onto this sort of copy. So he has a third animal standing near the other two. And that's an interesting novel approach to what he wants to do. He wants to make a double Tmura. Tanan Hasan. Harezu Tmuras Oila Tmuras Shlamim. I'd like this new animal to connect to the Oila and the Shlamim, to become a Tmura of both. Now, pretty much you could only have one or the other, right? You can't have hybrid, Oila and Shlamim. So what happens? Harezu Tmuras Oila. Divrei Rameir. Rameir says, whatever he said first. He said Oila first. That gets applied to the Tmura. So we ignore the second expression, Harezu Tmuras Oila. Rashi calls it Tefois Loshan Rishon. We adopt the first expression. Ve'en Kedusha, Chala al Kedusha, says Rashi. Once the initial Kedusha, which is an Oila, lands on the carbon, so to speak, it's applied, you can't apply another level of Kedusha, so it becomes a Tmuras Oila. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yosi says, no. Let's sit down with this fellow and have a discussion. What did he have in mind? If he had in mind that in fact the Tmura should become a Tmura of Oila and Shlamim, well, that's what you have to do. And what do you do? So you have to set it out to pasture, let it get a blemish, and sell it off, and take the money, buy with it half the money for an Oila, half for a Shlamim. Right? If initially this is what he had in mind, well, he's not an angel. He can't say two words at the same time, right? So he was trying to make half and half, right? It wasn't like a change of heart, like he changed his mind midway. Since it's not feasible for a human being to express two things, names of karbones simultaneously, so it was inevitable that he had to say it sequentially, but he intended on making a joint korban, dvarav kayam, so you have to accept his wishes, and that's what happens. It's a half and half. However, if he changed his mind midway, but, however, if after he had said tmura soila, he had a change of heart. Nimlach means he changed his mind, and he says, no, I want tmura shlamim. In this case, you're right, Ramir. Of course, the result is harezu oila. Okay, so he said Tmuras Oila, Timura Shlamim. What happens now? Ramir says, Tefois Lashon Rishon, it's the first name that counts, the first carbon sets in. It's Tmuras Oila, we ignore the second part. Rabbi Yosi says it's half and half. Iboilu, now comes an interesting question. What Ramir says, we adopt the first thing that he says. Is it because he was changing his mind? So we say, look, it's the first thing that counts. But let's say you would have an expression which isn't necessarily reflective of a change of heart. Suppose he says it in a way where it's clear that he intends on making a joint Tmura. What happens there? Shall we say, well, this is different? Or no? In all situations, it's the first thing that he said that counts. Now comes the question. Harezu tmuras oila ushlam. Instead of saying tmuras oila, tmuras shlam, which is a confusing, conflicting, contradictory expression, here he said it together. Tmuras oila ushlam. I want this to be a tmuras and a shlam. Or maus. So what's the halach here? Or lachtzos. Here's the new behema here. Lachtzos la'oila ulishlamim, says Rashi. Lachtzos. It's going to be split between oila. It's going to be a split oila, split shlamim. So here he didn't use confusing language. It's actually pretty clear in what he had in mind. He wants a half and half. But he did actually verbalize the word oila before shlamim. So what's the halach here? Now, shall we say, once you say oila, too late? Or no? And that's only because he was trying to change his mind, but initially this is what he wanted to do, and this is what happens. So Abaye says, yeah, Amar Abaye, certainly would agree in this case that it works. It becomes a half and half. Rava disagrees. Rava Amar Adayni Machlekes. No, the same Machlekes would apply here too, according to Rav Meir. The first lashon that he said takes hold, so it becomes an oila, and we ignore the rest. Amar le Rava, he asked the question, La Abaye. He's going to connect this discussion to our sugya in Maseches Zevachim, where we have Rabbi Yehuda Shita who says, a situation which is comparable somewhat to this Tamura confusion, he verbalized two machshavos, two schemes, two deficient plans. One relates to time, chuslas mane, which makes pigul. One relates to malkaim, wrong place, chuslam kaim, which does not make pigul. Rabbi Yehuda says, pigul gets activated because that was said first. Says Rava to Abaye. Assumingly, Rabbi Yehuda regarding pigul is consistent with Reb Meir regarding the Tamura confusion. The first sets in. The first is reckoned with, the other one is ignored, right? But interestingly, by us, by the carbon pigul situation, it's like the case of lachtzos, because both shloim zmana and shloim b'mkayim is set in at the same time. Let's say he's doing a shechita, right? So when does the shechita take effect? At the very last moment. And at that very last moment, both thoughts that he had said throughout the shechita, they come and they converge and they land together simultaneously. And still Rabbi Yehuda says, which one takes effect? The first one that he said. So apparently even when they converge together, we only adopt the first and ignore the second. Likewise, in the case of the Tamur, even if he said lachtzos, he said it in a singular expression, you should still only accept the first and ignore the second. Amalei Rava Abaye. According to your opinion, the Amasru says that when it's a singular expression, not a change of heart, it's one single expression, like lachtzos, Reb Meir agrees that it's half and half. You don't separate the components. It's one joint arrangement. So what about the case of shchita, rish shchita? The lachtzos dami. It's very similar. It's like the lachtzos by the Tamura, because as we explained, when he says, I'm going to eat a kazayis tomorrow, chuslas mane, kazayis chuslam kaimai, they're both pending until the last moment of the shechita when they both converge and take effect. So it's one package, and still, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we separate. They don't conflict and cancel each other out. We just adopt the shaloi bezmanai component, which he said first, and we ignore the rest. The chilatzos don't we have them in the Mishnah, whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, we separate the two components and we just focus on the first thing that he said. Amar le, Abaye responds, no. Let me explain to you the halacha by pigul. You'll see that it has no connection to the discussion regarding Tamura. Misavras, do you think that the halacha effect of shechita only occurs at the very last moment of shechita? Shechita is a continuous process. It takes 20 seconds. At what point is it considered halachically, shechta? When does the shechita take effect? The act of shechita is at the very last moment. That's when it gets implemented. El b'seif. That's what you're thinking. So according to you, the question makes sense because those two thoughts that he has verbalized during the shechita only take effect at the very last moment, so they converge, they conflict, but really it's not a conflict because it's one single package. So why would we separate the two thoughts, take the first and ignore the second? No, that's not the way we want to understand shechita. The truth is, yeshna l'shechita m'tchila v'atzoif. The halachic process of shechita is deemed from beginning to end. So all along, second he starts the shechita has been activated. It's a continuous process. And the truth is that in the shechita itself, you have very distinct components that can be separated from each other. You have the two simanim, right? Esophagus and the trachea. So he can have a machshava of shalei b'zmanai by the esophagus, by the one siman, and the machshava shalei b'zmanai by the second siman. There's no convergence. There's no joining between the two machshavas. The two separate, distinct, independent machshavas, independent of each other. And that's what Rabbi says, look, once he did one siman with the machshava shalei b'zmanai, that gets applied to the korban and shuts out anything else. And that's why there's people. There's no connection to Tfais Lashon Rishon, to understanding, the psychological background to what he's trying to do. No, it's a very simple process where the pigel had its own distinct moment in time, moment in the sun, so to speak, during the first siman, and that's why we adopt the pigel and ignore the shleimim kami which comes along during the second siman. Too late for you. So again, the shechita is deemed to be a continuous, ongoing process from beginning to end. And that's why now Mishnah, we're speaking the Amar Siman Rishon Chutz L'Zmani. The first Siman he said Chutz L'Zmani, that's it. And it gets implemented. That's what Rita says it's Pigel. Despite the fact that he continued on and said Siman Sheni Chutz L'Kami, the second Siman he said Chutz L'Kami. Too late for that. Ask the Gemara. But this rationale can only be applied by the Shechita, which you have beautifully explained as something which contains two distinct components, unrelated to each other. Hare Kmitza, regarding the Kmitza, we have the same discussion. Rabbi Yehuda later on says in Mesachas Menachos that likewise, if he mixed, he said Chutz L'Zmanai, then said Chutz L'Kaimai, it's Pigel because Chutz L'Zmanai is reckoned with, Chutz L'Kaimai is ignored. Now, by the Kmitza, we don't have two distinct components, two simanim to deal with. It's like the case of Lachtzis by the Tmura, where it's all one single package. And still upligi, we have a machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you say shalei b'zmanai first, that gets acted. We ignore the rest. How could you separate the shalei b'zmanai from shalei b'kaimai if they're both converging in a simultaneous fashion? Well, says the Gemara Samnami. There as well, we can explain how we have two components that can be separated. The Amar Kaimetz Mincha Chutz L'Zmanai. Remember, by the Mincha there are two kamatzim, two scoops. One is the flour kaimetz, which is put on the mizbeach and burnt, and one is the kaimetz of the levina, the incense, which likewise is burnt on the mizbeach. So he had a thought of shlei b'zmanai by the kaimetz of the Mincha, and the thought of shlei b'kaim came when he burnt the levina. Two separate, distinct components. No conflict. And that's why according to Rabbi Yehuda, Pigel kicks in, because it came first. The Amar, he said, Chaimetz Mincha Chutz L'Zmanai. When he burnt the Chaimetz Mincha, he said Chutz L'Zmanai. And Chaimetz Levina, when he burnt the Levina, he said Chutz L'Kaimai. Well, Hari Chaimetz Minchas Chayte, that's good by it, your standard Mincha. But the Minchas Chayte, Mincha that a sinner brings, only has flour, no incense. You don't have that second component to speak of. The Levina, there's no Levina about it together with the flour. Upligim Slav, the same Machlekes. Hey, explain it there. Says, Marley Plig, you're right, there is no Machlekes. In that case, since you're lacking two distinct components, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that there's a convergence, there's a conflict between Shlei b'zmanai and Shlei b'kaimai. They clash and they cancel each other out. Amar Rav Ashi, he says, what, not so quick. Even if you'll want to assume that there is machlekes there too, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, there'll be pigel. You know how? You can separate the Chutz L'Zmanai from Chutz L'Kaimai and avoid a conflict. Pligi b'pliyos. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion will relate to a kohen who was having these machshavos during the halacha of the kohen mitzvah mincha to the mizbeach. He's taking many steps. One step was chusas manai, and one step was chusam kaima. They're distinct, they're separate from each other, in which case the first dibur, the first machshava kicks in and shuts out the rest. Okay, so we had the machlokes regarding Tamura. Tamura Asoil, Tamura Shlamim, what happens? Rameir says, just look at the first thing that he said, ignore the rest. Rabbi Yossi says, well, it depends. If he wanted to, initially wanted to make this sort of combined entity, then that's what happens. And now Mishnah Bida says, likewise when he says, Chus Azmani, Chus Kaima, conflicting, contradictory statements, it's still going to be Pigel because Chus Azmani came first. According to Rabbah, yeah, it's because we say twice less Rishon, whatever you say first counts. According to Abaye, he says no. Here we're speaking that he actually said them separately on separate occasions, separate components in the carbon. One siman chus zmani, one siman chus kaimim, one kmitza chus zmani, one kmitza chus kaimim. In which case, Rabbi Yehuda holds, of course, the first thing gets activated. Now, regarding the Tamura scenario, suppose he would have really joined them together without, contradictory expressions. He would have said, well, I want this to be a Tamura Soila and Shlam, or Lachtzais. I want to split it between. According to Rava, in this case would also insist. It's the first thing that he said that counts. According to Abaye, in this case, certainly even Rabbi would agree, it becomes a split entity. Because it's all about, he changed his mind, didn't change his mind, but in this case, certainly it's what he's trying to do. So it works. So the same machlokes between Abaye and Rava, we have between Rav Simi bar Ashi, Masni, he learned Kedabai, he took on Abaye's approach, he had the same understanding on the machlokes between Rameir and Rabbi Yossi regarding Tamura. Rav Huna bar Nosson Masni, he learned Kedarava, as explained. Ki also Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came, Amar, he explained, you should know Rav Meir, who says that by Tamura, it becomes an oil because that's the first. Beshitas Rabbi Yehuda Amra. It coincides with Rabbi Yehuda and Al Mishnah by Pigel. Since Chus Zmani was said first, that's what happens. The Amra Tfais Lashon, adopt the first thing that you say. This nan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, Za'aklal, right? That's the rule. Im Machshavas Azman Kodma, Es Machshavas Amok, Zman preceded Malkaim, Pigel, it becomes Pigel, B'chel Karis with Karis. Now, of course, Abaye will disagree because he held that according to Reb Meir, it's about psychology. And that's why he said that if it was clear from the get-go that he was trying to combine it, it becomes a combined entity according to Reb Meir as well. He's knowing that Reb Meir and Rabbi Yossi are discussing how to analyze, how to properly analyze a person's intention in this type of scenario. So that's why Abaye takes issue with this correlation. Reb Meir, which is a psychological issue, right? Human understanding type of discussion, has nothing to do with Al Mishnah, with Rabbi Yehuda. Amalei Abaye responded. We have a quote from Rabbi Yechanan who says, Ki magaslu. If he'll try to bring close, so to speak, the shita of Reb Meir v'Rabbi Yossi, Badi you try to sort of make them compatible. Lei pligi, there is no machlekes. What do you mean lei pligi? There's no machlekes. I mean, lei pligi, we have a Mishnah with a machlekes. Reb Meir, Rabbi Yossi. Amalei, he says like this. I meant pligi my de pligi. Yeah, they're having a limited disagreement regarding that specific issue. How do we interpret his intention? For lei pligi, but my lei pligi, there's no machlekes regarding something that they're not arguing about. Meaning, you're expanding their machlekes. You're making it greater than it is. A conceptual question of Tvois Lashon Rishon, first thing that a person says, second thing, no, it's a local question. What do you have in mind? As follows: the Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yechanan. We have another quote from Rabbi Yechanan that, in fact, It's all about trying to understand and interpret his intention. How call Moedim? All of him means Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi. Moedim, they would agree. When he clearly says, he sat down with him and he explained what he had in mind. You know what I meant? Tachol zu, I wanted the oila to land first. Tachol zu, and then afterwards, the shlamim should be applied. Of course it doesn't work. It's a non-starter. Doesn't work. It becomes an oila and that's it. What about if he says loy tachol zu elim kin chalazu? I refuse to allow the oila to be applied unless a shlamim comes along with it. All agree it would work as a joint entity. Because that's what he wants. The question is when he was a little bit ambiguous. The question is how am I meant to interpret his expression? Kipli, the machlekes is in the case of the Amar when he said tmuras oila, tmuras shlamim, right? Tmuras oila, tmuras shlamim, which is a very confusing, unclear expression. Here we have the machlekes. But it's just about understanding what he had in mind. It's not like strictly a halachic discussion, a halachic question, a conceptual question. It's a question on what he had in mind. It's a question of his intent. Rabbi Meir holds, he could have easily said, Tmuras oila shlamim, and make it easy for us, if he wanted it to be a joint entity. But instead, he insisted and said, Tmuras oila timura shlamim. Apparently, he was changing his mind. First, he wanted oila, he said, I may as well have a shlamim, have a good meal, right? Too late. That's why the oila sticks. Rabbi Yossi says, no. This fellow is a deep fellow, a calculated person. I'll tell you why he said it this way. He wanted a joint, combined, half and half entity. But he's thinking, tmuras oila shlamim. He says, look, if I would say it properly, tmuras oila shlamim, people will misunderstand. People will think, I want it to be half and half. Palga, half the animal should be tmuras oila, or palga, the other half should be tmuras shlamim. It's not going to be work because he's thinking to himself, I do it this way, you're not going to be able to bring it as a carbon. You can't bring a half oila. Lachi Amar, that's why he twisted his expression and he modified it a bit, thinking that this way it would work, even though he's mistaken, it doesn't. But he wanted to broaden the mizbeach, so he said tmuras oila, tmuras shlamim. Remember, to say, to express the kul oila, the kul shlamim. He's thinking that if he does it this way, the entire thing becomes a shlamim. Strange thinking, but that's what he's thinking. The kul oila, the kul shlam havi. He wants it to be brought on the mizbeach, so he does it this way, thinking if I say tmuras oila, entire thing becomes an oila. Tmuras shlam plus it gets another layer of shlamim on top of that. There's no conflict. You bring it on the mizbeach as a double carbon. I get a double, extra credit. But there was no reversal. There's no change of heart. So clearly, according to this explanation of Rabbi Yochanan, machlekes isn't conceptual. As per our Mishnah, where it's a question of what lands first, what lands second, the first thing you say second. Here's just a question of what he had in mind. And that's Abaye's response to Rav Dimi. Amalei. So Rav Dimi says, who Amalei pligi? Yeah, you're quoting Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, he says there's no machlekes in terms of concept. It's just about psychology. I have a different opinion. According to my approach, there is a very fundamental machlekes. Even in a case where but he had both in mind. Still, Rabbi Meir will say, Tzvois Lashon Rishon, which coincides with Rabbi Yehuda and our Mishnah, that when a person expresses two things, it's not up to him. Your words have value. Dibur takes on, a life of its own, it takes effect, and cannot be reversed. Interestingly, we have two, very distinct ways how to understand the sugya. Is it about interpreting human thinking, or is it more about, the power of the word to take effect? Amr says Ula v'tema some say Ra'isha. I have a question regarding our Mishnah. So back to the Mishnah regarding Pigel. He said, I'm doing the Shechita on condition, right, with the intent of having a kazayis of the basar the wrong time, chus zmanim. And he says a kazayis of basar chus l'mkayma as well. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we separate the two. There's no conflict. They don't cancel each other out. Pigel takes effect, and if one eats this carbon, this kares. Now, how exactly did he say it? He said a kazayis. Let's make it easy, simple. Kazayis zman Kazayis Makim, right? It means Chus Zman, Chus Makim, right? Did he say Kazayis Kizayis without the Vav, without that connector, and that allows us to separate and ignore the second? Or did he even say with the Vav? Kazayis Vikazayis, and still we can separate. Efshar Yadin Chavrin Bavla, perhaps our friends in Bavel are familiar, are cognizant of the precise spelling in the Mishnah. What exactly did he say? And in which case does Rabbi Yehuda demet pigel? Kazayis without the Vav? Or Kazayis Vikazayis, or with the Vav, and still we can separate and ignore the second part and just make it pigel. And he explains, Kazayis now without the Vav, perhaps? Is that the correct word? Aval Kazayis Vikazayis, but with the Vav, the Rekha all agree. It's just a big mix-up. Iruv Machshavas Havi, they conflict, they cancel each other out, all agree. Or you can say, no, Kazayis Vikazayis, even with the Vav, the L'Sem Halacha was said. The little Rabbi Yehuda Prata Havi, you can separate them and just apply the first, which is Pigel. The Koshken, certainly, if it's without the Vav, it would work. Kazayis certainly can separate. Tashma. Here comes some clarity. That in fact, even with a Vav, Rabbi Yehuda separates them. So there's a whole story here with a lot of back and forth, but ultimately that's going to be the conclusion. The Bai Minei Levi, who was a Talmud of Rabbi Danos, Rabbi HaKadosh, asked his Rebbe, Bai Minei Levi mi Rabbi. So before we begin, we have three possible scenarios. Right? The first was Chos Zmanai, then Chos Kamei. It can either have been Kazayis, that's number one. A step above that would be Kazayis Vikazayis. Now we have a third possibility. Suppose they were both on the same Kazayis. I'm going to need a Kazayis, that same Kazayis, in the wrong time and in the wrong place. What happens there? Would Rabbi Yehuda separate the thoughts and just apply the pigel? Or no, it's just one big confluence and conflict, and it wouldn't work. So he asked Rabbi like this: he was thinking to eat the same kazayis tomorrow outside. So chus zman and the same kazayis. What's the halacha here? According to Rabbi Yehuda, Amrullah, he says, that's a good question. Zu she'ela. So first he complimented him. Good question. But the answer is iruv machshavas havi. Certainly in this case, the thoughts converge, they conflict and cancel each other out, according to Rabbi Yehuda as well. Iruv machshavas havi. Amrullah Fanav. Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi. So Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rabbi, was listening in, and he responded to his father. He says like this: why are you complimenting? What's the big deal? I mean, he could have figured this out on his own. Look at the Mishnah, right? Isn't this included in our Mishnah? Lechal kazayis b'chutz kazayis l'machar. Right? He had a mind to eat kazayis outside, kazayis tomorrow, or the opposite, kazayis l'machar, kazayis b'chutz, or half and half, right? Kazayis b'chutz, kazayis l'machar, or the opposite, kazayis l'machar, kazayis b'chutz. Pasavei mekaris. According to Rabbanan, if there's an element of anything other than chus zmani, it's not going to be real pigel. It's possible, there's no kares. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda says, we highlight the pigel element, and right, if the kazayis b'chutz, kazayis l'machar, then that's not pigel. But kazayis l'machar, which is shleiv zmani, before kazayis b'chutz, that's pigel. The fact that the Mishnah only presented Rabbi Yehuda's opinion in these types of cases, a case where they were separate kazayis for zman, kazayis for makom, apparently only that becomes pigel. Ha'idach. Apparently, but in the other case, the third case, the case where it's both on the same kazayis, certainly they cancel each other out. So he could have just deduced this from our Mishnah. Amalei, so Rebbe responded, no. Who sha'al? Sha'alaini var chachma. No, actually, he asked me a good question. Question of chachma. He could not have figured it out on his own. But Amras, you're telling me Mishnah Seinu is just a Mishnah? Let me explain to you what's going on. Why you thought it was obvious and he didn't. Because to you, I presented both variations. Variation 1, where it was kazayis, and variation 2, kazayis vikazayis. So you knew the fact that I only presented 2 and not the third case of both converging on the same kazayis, apparently, because that's different, that's a conflict. Like Kashlach, so you had no question in terms of what happens there. It was obvious that that third case wouldn't work. But the day say elochada. But it happens to be that to Levi only presented the first basic case, kazayis. And what happened was, I omitted the other ones. Case 2 and 3. Again, case 1 means kazayis. Case 2 means kazayis vikazayis. Case 3 is zman amakim on the same kazayis. Only taught on the first case. And he overheard the other talmidim who had a little different version of this presentation. They had both versions in my name. The Kugarsi Tarti. They had both versions. Version 1, kazayis, and version 2, kazayis vikazayis. And he wasn't sure which version is correct. The Sovereign is thinking, the didavka was my version, the correct one. That in fact only kazayis without the vav allows for separation. Vididu and their variation 2 with the vav, that's a mix. That doesn't work. And then certainly case 3, which is converging on one kazayis. That's one approach. Or he wasn't sure, or maybe the dudavka, really their version is correct. That kazayis or kazayis vikazayis, and both Rebbe separates it. And what happened was, apparently my Rebbe just, omitted. He didn't tell, he's going to fill it in later. He left something out. He only discussed case 1 without case 2. Okay, so once my Rebbe leaves something out, maybe he left out case 3 as well. And the fact that he left something out by me, he left out case 2, perhaps shir lulidudunami. Perhaps he left out, on their version, he left out case 3. And really case 3 perhaps would have the same halacha. And really would separate Zman HaMakim, even when they converge on the same kazayis. I'm not sure. Okay, that's a valid question. And that's why he presented it as a question. Says the Gemara. Let's just dig a bit deeper now. So, he only taught Levi 1 variation. Which one? 1 or 2? Case 1, kazayis, or case 2, kazayis, vikazayis. Which one? Vayisnai, which one did he teach him? Ilam kazayis, vikazayis. Did he teach him case 2 with a vav? Then why do you think that something was omitted? Nothing was omitted at all. Hailav shiruhu, there's nothing left out. Because even in case 2 with the vav, Rebbe separates. Certainly in case 1 without the vav, it's not called omission. There's nothing left out. Elo kazayis, esnai. Apparently he taught him case 1, kazayis. So now he wasn't sure which way to go. He taught me kazayis, variation 1. He taught them. They're walking around speaking about variation 2 as well. So is their version correct? And variation 3 would not work? Or perhaps, is my version correct? In which case only variation 1 works, but not variation 2 or 3? Is their version correct? And he left something out by me. So perhaps he left out variation 3 by them too. So the question is, he was trying to verify, trying to clarify this matter. So if Levi only heard about variation 1, that's what he was taught, he wasn't sure about 2 or 3, why didn't he ask about 2? Why did he jump straight to 3 to ask this question? The case where it's on the same kazayis, but he could ask firstly regarding case 2. What happens if it's with the vav? Would it be the separate or not? Why did he jump to case 3? The answer is, he was super chacham. They would speak very precise and concise and short in those days. So he actually was trying to verify case 2 and 3, but he figured, I'll find a way to present my question in a very shorthand way, which will include both case 2 and case 3. Listen to this. Savar, he figured like this. I'll ask him one case, which will teach me 2. The Shamana Tati, which will clarify both cases. How? Imagine I would ask him about case 2 with the vav. Can we separate or not? That's if I would have asked that way. He didn't, but if I would have, I still wouldn't get clarity on case 3. Why? Hanicha, certainly it would work. If you would tell me that case 2 with the vav is 1, can't be separated, then certainly case 3 where it's really on the same kazayis. Koshken, certainly kazayis lamacha b'chutz, when it's the same kazayis tomorrow outside, certainly you can't separate. Okay, that would work. But that's only if he answers that way. What if he answers the other way? Eli Amrli Prata, but if I would get a different answer, if I would ask about case 2, kazayis, he would say, no, you can separate them. Rebbe separates it. Okay, but maybe only case 2 can be separated, but case 3 where it's the same kazayis cannot be separated. So I'll still be in the dark. Ankati still, kazayis lamacha b'chutz, I still would know the halacha regarding the third case when it's the same kazayis. So that's why he asked on case 3. This way, he can figure out case 2 and case 3 from the answer. So, well, what do you mean? He still can't. If that's the case, hashtanam, even now when he asked about case 3, yeah, all depends on the response. Certainly, if in response to this question, what happens in case 3 when it's the same kazayis, outside and tomorrow? If you would tell me prata, you can still separate the thoughts and make it pickle, then of course case 2, koshkin kazayis for kazayis, where it's 2 separate kazayis, of course you can separate. Okay, that would provide clarity on both. But let's say, imagine, Eli Amrle Klala. Suppose his response to case 3 would be, it's one single entity, it cannot be separated. Okay, but only that, but case 2 perhaps could be separated. Akati still wouldn't know kazayis for kazayis, but still wouldn't know the status of kazayis for kazayis, which is case 2. So what do you gain by asking it this way? He still could be theoretically left in the dark. So the Gemara Cain, he figured like this. Let me ask him about case 3. What happens if it's the same kazayis? Bazman and Makkah. Now, again, if you would tell me you can separate, then certainly case 2, where it's 2 separate kazayis, of course, allows for separation of kontrabida and its pickle. On the other end, if when I asked about case 3, Zman and Makkah on the same kazayis, if you would tell me, if in fact it's one and cannot be separated, you know what he would tell me? He would respond with sort of a surprise. Ratach means he would be angry, but it would be angry means he would be surprised at my question. He would answer with a tone of voice that expresses surprise. You're asking about what happens if it's the same kazayis? Of course you can't separate. Even if it's case 2, kazayis for kazayis klola, even case 2, kazayis for kazayis, inseparable. Kazayis lamacha b'chutz m'boya? Because without saying, it's obvious that case 3 would be inseparable because it's the same kazayis. That's how you would respond. You respond in sort of a surprising tone of voice, and that would shed light. That would give me indication where he's coming from. Now, what I would answer is both to case 2 and case 3. So either way, I would walk away with full clarity. Okay, so again, Levi asked Rabbi, what happens if it's the same kazayis? Okay, I'm eating kazayis outside and tomorrow. Rabbi would consider that pigul? Could you separate tomorrow from outside? Could you take the zman and zero it and then make it pigul? The answer was no. That's going a bit too far. But based on his response, which is very pleasant response, what a nice question, that gave him indication and clarity regarding kazayis vikazayis, which is case 2. He said, this is a good question, because here it converges. But apparently, if they're regarding separate kazayises, even with a vav, you can still separate them. Kontrabida and its pigul. So that's our conclusion. Question was, Rabbi Yehuda's pigul, is it only when it's kazayis 2 separate without the vav, or even with the vav? The answer is even with the vav. If he said zman first, that gets applied and you have pigul. Okay, that's pretty much summarizes today's daf. We had a kohen doing an avodah with pigul and shleibim kaimet at the same time. Rabbanan say, they cancel, they conflict, they cancel each other out. You have no pigul. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the zman was said first, you have pigul. There are 2 ways to learn the Mishnah. Going to Abaye's way, we're speaking in a very specific situation where he expressed his man on one simon and the malkam on a different simon, etc. So they're 2 separate independent expressions and experiences. That's why the pigul kicks in. Or to the other approach, no, it's about what he said first. It's twice lashon rishon. It's not necessarily limited to the case of one simon and one simon. All situations, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it would be considered a pigul. Similar machlokes we had regarding the tmura. He said tmura soila, tmura shlam. Rabbi Yossi says it's a joint entity. Rabbi Meir says it's the first one that counts. Again, we have 2 ways to understand. Either is it about twice lashon rishon. So regardless of how he said it, it's the first thing that counts. According to Abai, it's about human psychology. It's about trying to decipher, his machshavas, his kavanos, and that's how we have the machlokes remain Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Another machlokes we had regarding our sheet of discussion of pigul. Rabbi Yehuda says Zman kicks in and we ignore the malkim. Going to Ilfa, that was specific to 2 avodas. Whereas if it's in the same avodah, there would be an open conflict and it wouldn't work. According to Rabbi Yechon, even within the same avodah, you can separate, and according to Yehuda, it's the first thing that he said that counts, and you have people. All the best to you, and Atzlacha Rabbah.